Alright guys, so I told you I was going to have new reviews for brand new video games pretty soon, and I picked up Dead Space 3 last week, Tuesday at midnight, and I've since beaten it. Even got this really awesome poster that's like so big, can't even fit in the frame. Now before I get in depth about Dead Space 3, I'll let you know that I did really enjoy the first two games, and I was excited about Dead Space 3, but at the same time I was kind of apprehensive in the same way that I am about movies once a series starts to get so long to the point where so many sequels are coming out and you're like, I really hope this doesn't suck. Now for anyone who doesn't know the story of the Dead Space games, I'll sum it up really quick. Basically, there's this thing called the Marker. It's this big monolith similar to the Space Odyssey monolith, except it's really twisty and pointy. And this thing has the ability to spread this disease amongst humankind. People turn into these giant bug-like creatures. They decay to the point where they're unrecognizable and they just want to go around and kill anything in sight. Now these games take place in a very dystopian, futuristic world, generally always in space. The main character, Isaac Clarke, is a lowly engineer. He's just a grunt. He's no one special, and he's always in the wrong place at the wrong time, similar to John McClane. This guy knows everything and anything about fixing ships, and by now, he knows quite a bit about these creatures known as the necromorphs. There's also a religious cult that for some reason seems to think that mankind needs to turn into these creatures so that it can go back to the top of the food chain and somehow get closer to God. And in this game, he's drugged back into the fray because a woman that he knows is involved with it, and he wants to make sure she's safe. Now that's cliched, and to be honest, the entire story behind the Dead Space games isn't the most impressive thing, and especially with Dead Space 3, the weakest part of this game is probably the story elements to it. But nevertheless, the reason I play these games is because they're visceral entertainment at its best. It's great sci-fi horror, it's great sci-fi action, and it's a lot of fun, and in my opinion, Dead Space 3 follows suit with the first two games very well. Right off the bat, this game has one of the best opening sequences I've ever seen in a game. It was incredible and completely unexpected, and I can't wait for you guys to experience that opening because it's one of the coolest openings I've ever played. The best way I can describe this game to you is it's basically the movie The Thing on acid. It takes place almost entirely on an ice planet, and a lot of people were curious about how that was going to be because most of the previous two games were in ships in space. This game does start out in a ship, and it kind of gets you into the game and lets you experience it kind of like you did in the first two, and then it throws you into this ice planet, and it's awesome. You can't tell where these things are. They pop out of the ground. They come at you through the white out of the snow. It's really fun, and you actually get some really intense jump moments where I was actually like, oh, okay, that was a little disturbing. In fact, there is one moment in this game that truly actually gave me goosebumps. There's this scene where Isaac has to go in this cavern underground, and he can only see with the flashlight that's on his plasma cutter. So he's shining it around, and all of a sudden he comes across this little tiny group of these creatures that are just huddled around something, and then they just turn and stare at you for like 10 seconds, and they just keep staring, and then they just jump Isaac. It really scared me. I was like, that was good job, game developers. Speaking of them, Visceral did a really good job with this game, in particular the graphics. Oh my god, this game looks amazing. The world of this game is perhaps the most impressive element of it. Just the fully realized environment that Isaac and these other characters inhabit. There were times in the game where there were no enemies around where I would just stop and just look around because it was so impressive to look at. It has the same problem the first game had where there are certain control elements where if you press something just the wrong way, you like lose all your health or something, or you use your health and you're not supposed to, and there's always creatures everywhere but you need your health but you can't use your health because you accidentally pressed the button the wrong way when you wanted to use your kinesis, but oh, you just refilled your health. Whoops, now I don't have the health I needed later. That happens a few times in this game, but once you focus on the controls and get used to them, it's a piece of cake. There are two big gameplay switches in this game compared to the first two. Number one is at the bench, the place where in the first two games you would upgrade your weapons, and then there was a safe and you could buy things at a store, you could buy new weapons, or you could sell your weapons or whatever. This game does not have the store at all, completely does away with it. In this game you actually scavenge and hunt for parts to assemble your own guns. You can make and craft your own gun in any way you want to. In the other two games there were crates throughout the whole game and you could stomp on them and there would be items in them. This game has that as well, except in the past it was always health or ammo or something along those lines. In this game, in regards to ammo, there's only one item and it's called ammo clip. You get that, you get as many of them as you can, and you can add it to any weapon you want to, which is pretty cool. Since you can't buy things at a store and you have to hunt and scavenge for parts, many of these crates have parts in them, like a circuit you may need for a gun, or this gel that you can use to fix your suit or whatever. Now the problem I had with that was, let's say I'm in the middle of a giant boss battle. There's this giant bug trying to rip my head off. There's all these crates everywhere. Great, I really need health and ammo right now. Oh, but guess what? I just found some gel in one of these crates. Great, I can do my hair while I fight this giant bug who's trying to ram his giant hand up my butt. And so that got a little tiresome after a while, because the crates would have random items in them. You want it to be health, you want it to be ammo, but oh, I got some gel for my gun that I can't use right now. Thanks, game. So in that aspect it got annoying, but it was kind of cool to make your own weapons. The other gameplay element that seriously switches things up is the addition of co-op. Now a lot of people were worried about this because none of the other games had co-op. How is this going to affect the game? Is it going to make it not so great? Is it going to be like Resident Evil 0 where you can kind of control one person, then they kind of go off, and you control the other person, and then they go off? Or is it going to be forced co-op where they're always there throughout the entire game right next to you? Good news for people who don't want to do that, you can actually choose to play the entire game on solo campaign and never have to worry about that ever, which is what I did because I played the first two that way and I played this one that way. So I can't really review much about the co-op. So if you weren't interested in playing co-op, then you can actually play solo campaign, but if you want to, you can invite a friend online or play with one of your friends in real life, which is pretty cool. Now one thing I definitely liked about this game more than the first two was the character of Isaac. I always enjoyed him in the first two. He was fun. In the first game he didn't even say anything and you only saw his face once. In the second game you got to know him more, but in this game he really felt like a human. I gotta say, he really felt like a person. You got more attached to him and you really started to care for the guy. And one of the things that made him more entertaining was his familiarity with the events and the creatures. Like he kept popping jokes like, oh yeah, I've seen that before, oh boy. Like there's this one scene where there's this regenerating creature, and if you remember anything about Dead Space 2, there's a freaking thing that just follows you throughout the entire like last third of the game. Every time you shoot off its limbs, it just grows them right back and keeps following you, and it's like the most unnerving thing in the entire game aside from sticking a needle in Isaac's eye, which was pretty intense, which makes me not understand why people complain about the whole action-oriented thing. I thought the games were pretty horrific actually myself. Sticking a needle in your eye, yeah, that's pretty horrifying. What was I saying? Oh yeah, in the game he encounters another regenerating creature, and this guy shouts, "It's regenerating! How are you gonna kill it?" And Isaac just goes, "I'm not!" and runs away. I was like, that is awesome. They really made Isaac a good, entertaining character in this game. Now there was one part in the game where I encountered a pretty serious glitch. There's this scene where you have a cutscene, and there's two characters talking. Now what's supposed to happen after that cutscene is you get ambushed by these religious cultists that start firing at you. What happened to me once in the game though is it somehow mixed that up. During the cutscene the religious cultists started firing at you. So Isaac is just sitting there talking to this guy being systematically dismembered, and by the end of the cutscene he was just two legs standing there, and as soon as the cutscene ended he just fall over dead. And I was like, please tell me that's not actually what the game's supposed to do right now. It restarted from the last checkpoint and it didn't happen again. But it may happen to you, I don't know. Did anyone else have that experience? Now as I said, the story elements of this game aren't the most impressive thing. It wasn't even like that in the first two. The main villain is very underdeveloped. He's just kind of there and he has a big master scheme and you have to save Earth and all that stuff. And there's a damsel in distress, of course. But the reason you play these games is for the sheer visceral entertainment of dismembering a whole bunch of giant bug creatures that are coming after you. It's one of those games where there are certain moments of the game that are so challenging, and when you finally do surmount those challenges, it's like actually pretty invigorating. Now I can see a complaint that some people may have with this game, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but at times the game feels a little Mass Effect 3-ish, and a lot of people are disappointed with Mass Effect 3. There are certain elements of this game that reminded me of that, and I can see that a lot of people may play this game and be like, really? Okay. I thought the way they chose to take this game, it was handled well. I can see them making a Dead Space 4, and I can see myself playing a Dead Space 4. But I can see how people might think that it was ground they've already walked on before. The game developers, Visceral Games, did a really good job with this game. It looks incredible, it sounds amazing, the voice acting is very good, the sound effects are great, and overall it's just a really fun game with good gameplay. If you chose to play it on co-op, I'd really be interested in what your thoughts were. I'm going to give Dead Space 3 9 out of 10. Thanks a lot for watching my first official new release video game review, guys. I'm going to be getting Aliens Colonial Marines today. It comes out today. Hopefully I'll have that review for you very soon. Also, I'm going to be going to my buddy John, the FlickPix house, when it gets a little bit warmer. He started a video game channel called Flick Video Games. I'm going to be going to his house and we're going to do a couple of video game related videos together. I hope you guys check out his channel. It's going to be fun. We're probably just going to do gameplay games where we make jokes and talk while we play the game, which might be entertaining for you, I hope. I don't know. But I left a link for his channel in the description, and I hope you go check out his channel. He has some fun gameplay videos for Call of Duty. Hope you enjoy it. As always, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll be back very soon with my review for Aliens Colonial Marines. Hope you enjoyed this first video game review, and as always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.